never reckoned I would be the type of bloke to have a revenge story. My name is Liam Harper. 3 years ago, I was just another programmer with massive dreams and an even bigger mortgage in a stifling unit in Parramatta out in Western Sydney. I had a wife named Sophie, whom I believed was the absolute love of my life, a cramped apartment that was mostly filled with computer servers, and a start-up idea that kept me awake through the humid nights. "Liam, we need to have a chat," Sophie said one sweltering evening. I was hunched over my keyboard, sweat sticking my shirt to my back, putting the finishing touches on what I believed would be revolutionary software. I barely looked up. "Just 5 more minutes, Soph. I am almost there with this code, I promise." "No, Liam, now." Her voice had an edge I had not heard before. When I finally turned my chair around, I saw her standing there with 2 large suitcases, not one, but 2, and she was dressed impeccably, like she was heading somewhere expensive in the city, not standing in our living room with the peeling paint. My stomach dropped. "What is going on?" I asked, though some part of me already knew the answer. Sophie set a thick envelope on the coffee table. "Divorce papers." "I have already signed them," she said softly. The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Divorce? Sophie, what are you talking about? We can work through whatever this is." She laughed, but it was not the warm laugh I had fallen in love with at university. This one was cold, almost cruel. "Work through it, Liam? We have been working through it for 3 years. I am finished living like this. I am done with the empty promises that your big break is just around the corner. I am done with clipping coupons for Woolworths and worrying about the electricity bill while my friends are holidaying in Europe." I stood up, my project momentarily forgotten. "Sophie, I am close, so close. This platform could change everything for us." "That is exactly what you said about the last 3 projects." She crossed her arms. "I have met someone else." Those words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. "Who?" I managed to ask. "Harrison Sterling." The name did not register at first, and then it hit me like a freight train. Harrison Sterling, the chief executive officer of Sterling Corporation, one of the largest technology companies in Australia. I had read about him in the Financial Review, dreamed of pitching my ideas to his company someday. The Harrison Sterling. "How did you even meet him?" Sophie looked away, a slight flush on her cheeks. "I applied for an executive assistant position at his company 6 months ago. I did not tell you because I knew you would see it as me not believing in your work." "6 months?" My voice cracked. "You have been seeing him for 6 months?" "It was not like that at first," she said defensively. "But yes, we have been together for about 4 months now, and Liam, he can give me the life I want, the life you promised me when we got married." I felt like I was drowning in the middle of Sydney Harbor. "So, all those late nights at work, I was with Harrison," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "His world is everything I have ever wanted. He has a penthouse in Barangaroo, a holiday home at Palm Beach. He flies private, Liam. Private." Her eyes glittered with excitement, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. "And what about love?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you love him?" Sophie hesitated just long enough for me to know the answer before she said, "I am learning to. But what I know for sure is that I do not love this life anymore." She gestured around our modest apartment, looking at my second-hand furniture with disdain. "I do not love watching you waste your potential on pipe dreams that never pay off." "Waste my potential? Sophie, I have been building something revolutionary." "You have been hiding from reality," she snapped. Real successful people do not hole up in apartments in Parramatta. They are out there in the city, making connections and making things happen. I was stunned by the venom in her voice. So, that is it. After 5 years of marriage, you are just walking out. Harrison is waiting for me downstairs? She checked her expensive watch. I will be staying at his place in the city until the divorce is finalized. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets, though there is not much to divide, is there? The look she gave me was so full of contempt, it physically hurt. Sophie, please, I said, hating the desperation in my voice. Just give me a chance to show you. The platform is almost ready. I have meetings with investors next week. I have heard it all before, Liam, and even if by some miracle you do succeed this time, it is too late for us. She picked up her suitcases. Harrison knows people, real investors, not the small-time gamblers you have been chasing. He could have made things happen for you, but you were too proud to even consider asking for help. I wanted to make it on my own merit, and look where that got us. She shook her head. Sign the papers, Liam. Do not drag this out. As she headed for the door, a terrible thought occurred to me. Did you tell him about my platform? About the algorithms I have been developing? Sophie paused, her back to me. Harrison was interested. He asked questions. I might have shared some details. The betrayal was complete. Not only was she leaving me for another man, but she had potentially compromised years of my work. You had no right, I said, my voice hardening. That was proprietary information. She turned, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse. But then it was gone. It does not matter, Liam. Even if your idea is as good as you think, Harrison has the resources to develop it better and faster. That is reality. Get out, I said quietly. Gladly, she opened the door. Oh, and Liam, Harrison says men like you are a dime a dozen in this industry. Ideas are worthless without the capital and connections to back them up. You should remember that. And then she was gone, leaving nothing but the scent of her expensive perfume and divorce papers on my coffee table. I stood there for what felt like hours, my world collapsing around me. Then I slowly walked to the kitchen and pulled out the bottle of Tasmanian whiskey that we had been saving for a special occasion. This was not what we had in mind, but it seemed appropriate now. 3 glasses in, I was numb enough to think straight. Sophie had not just broken my heart, she had put my entire future at risk. If Sterling Corporation used my algorithms, years of work would be worthless. I would be competing against my own creation, backed by one of the biggest technology companies in the country. I dialed my friend Callum, who worked in intellectual property law. She told him what? Callum exclaimed after I explained the situation. Liam, that is a major breach of confidentiality. Did she sign a non-disclosure agreement when you started developing this? No, I admitted. She is my wife. Was my wife. I did not think I needed one. Rookie mistake, Callum sighed. But all is not lost. Document everything. When you started development, what specific proprietary elements you created, timestamps of code commits. If Sterling releases anything resembling your platform, we can still make a case, but that would mean years of litigation against a company with bottomless pockets for legal fees. One battle at a time, Callum advised. First, finish your platform, get it to market, establish yourself. Then we worry about Sterling. After we hung up, I looked around the apartment that suddenly felt too empty, too quiet. Sophie's words echoed in my head. Men like you are a dime a dozen. That night, I made a decision. I would not just finish the platform. I would make it better than anything Harrison Sterling could imagine. And then I would make him pay for taking my wife and trying to steal my future. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and burning determination. The divorce papers still lay untouched on the coffee table. They could wait. I had more important matters to handle. On the fourth day of a coding marathon, fueled by rage and caffeine, my doorbell rang. A courier delivered a package from Sterling Corporation containing a check for 50,000 Australian dollars and a condescending letter acknowledging conceptual similarities between my work and their upcoming platform. I stared at the check, fury rising in my chest. $50,000. That is what Harrison Sterling thought my years of work were worth. That is the price he put on stealing my ideas and my wife. I ripped the check into confetti, then grabbed my phone. "Jack," I said when my potential angel investor answered, "I am ready to show you the platform tomorrow." 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 days later, I sat across from Jack O'Neill, a veteran technology investor known for taking chances on unconventional startups that the big banks in the central business district would not touch with a 10-foot pole. His office was not a glass tower in Barangaroo. It was a converted warehouse in Surrey Hills, smelling faintly of roasted coffee beans and old timber. I had worked through the night to prepare the demonstration, pushing myself past the point of exhaustion to ensure every feature was perfect. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand, but my adrenaline was pumping hard. "So, Liam," Jack said, leaning back in his worn leather chair. He was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, looking more like a surfer than a millionaire. "Sophie will not be joining us. She usually sits in on these meetings to handle the numbers." I had not told many people about the divorce yet. The wound was too fresh. "No, Jack. We are separated." Jack raised a bushy eyebrow. "I am sorry to hear that. Recent?" "Very." I cleared my throat, forcing my voice to remain steady. "But that will not affect the project. If anything, I am more committed than ever to making this work." "I see." Jack studied me for a long moment, his gaze piercing. He was looking for cracks in my armor. "Well, let us see what you have got, mate." I launched into my presentation, explaining how my predictive analytics platform could process unstructured data faster and more accurately than anything currently on the market. As I demonstrated the software, Jack's interest visibly grew. He leaned forward, tapping his pen against the desk. "This is impressive, Liam," he said when I finished. "But I have heard whispers on the grapevine. Sterling Corporation is working on something similar, scheduled to launch within the next quarter." My heart sank, but my face remained impassive. Harrison Sterling was moving fast. "Mine is better," I said firmly, "and I can prove it." "How?" "Give me access to a dataset, any dataset you have. Let me show you what this platform can do in real time." Jack considered this, then pulled out his mobile phone. After a brief call, he had his assistant email over a massive dataset from one of his portfolio logistics companies, trucking routes across the Nullarbor Plain that had been proving impossible to optimize effectively. "Show me what you can do with this," he challenged. I imported the data into my platform, set the parameters, and let the algorithms work their magic. The fans on my laptop whirred aggressively in the quiet office. Within minutes, patterns began to emerge on the screen. Clear correlations and predictive insights regarding fuel consumption and driver fatigue that would have taken weeks to find using conventional methods. Jack looked at the screen, his eyes wide. "Struth," he muttered. "That is remarkable." "This is just the beginning," I said. "With proper funding, I can expand the capabilities even further." By the end of the meeting, Jack was not just interested, he was excited. "I am prepared to offer 2 million Australian dollars in seed funding for 15% equity," he said, extending a hand that was calloused from sailing. but I need you to move fast. If Sterling beats you to market, we are dead in the water." "They will not," I promised, shaking his hand. "And Jack, I need something else. Connections. I need to be introduced to the right people, not just for the business, but to build a profile. I want the technology world to know who is behind this platform." Jack smiled, a wolfish grin. "That, Liam, might be even more valuable than the money. Consider it done." Walking out of his office with a signed term sheet, I felt something I had not experienced since Sophie left. Hope. And something else, the first stirrings of a plan that went beyond just succeeding. But money was only the fuel. I needed an engine. I could not build this empire alone in my apartment in Parramatta. I rented a cheap, run-down office space above a kebab shop in Penrith. It was hot, noisy, and smelled of garlic sauce, but it was ours. Then I went hunting for the outcasts. I did not go to the recruitment agencies in the city. I went to the hackathons and community centers. I went to the online forums where the brilliant but socially awkward gathered. That is where I found Matilda, or Tilly, as she preferred. She had pink hair, piercings in her eyebrows, and a reputation for being unmanageable. She had been fired from 3 major banks for unauthorized testing of their security systems. "Why should I work for you?" Tilly asked, eyeing me suspiciously over her laptop in a cafe. "You look like just another suit who got lost in the suburbs." "Because I am going to take down Harrison Sterling," I said quietly, "and I hear you hate bullies." Tilly smiled, a sharp, dangerous expression. "When do I start?" We assembled a team of 5. We were the misfits, the ones the big end of town had overlooked. We called ourselves Harper Data Solutions, but in those early days, we were more like a family of pirates. For the next 3 months, we barely saw the sun. We engaged in what my father would have called hard yakka, honest, brutal work. We coded until our fingers cramped, fueled by energy drinks and cheap pizza. I renamed the company officially, filed the paperwork, and pushed my team to their limits. The divorce was finalized with minimal fuss. Sophie did not want anything from our modest assets, clearly confident that her future with Harrison would provide all she needed. I signed the papers without reading them, already focused on the lines of code that were scrolling across the huge monitors we had set up in the Penrith office. 6 months after Sophie walked out, we were ready. We were tired, we were hungry, and we were dangerous. Then came the news we had been waiting for. Sterling Corporation announced a delay in the launch of their analytics platform, citing unforeseen technical challenges. In our small office, a cheer went up that rattled the windows. Tilly high-fived the developers. I knew exactly why they were delayed. They had tried to reverse engineer my ideas based on what Sophie had told them, but without the full picture, they had hit mathematical walls they could not overcome. The core innovations remained mine alone. Jack called me the day after the announcement. "You did it, kid. Sterling is floundering, and the industry is whispering. But now you need to decide. Do you want to grow steady and solid, or do you want to go big?" I looked around the room at my team, my exhausted, brilliant, loyal team. I thought of the empty apartment in Parramatta. I thought of the smirk on Harrison Sterling's face. "Big," I said without hesitation. "I want to go to the city." 2 weeks later, Harper Data Solutions opened a sleek office in North Sydney, just across the Harbour Bridge from Sterling Corporation's headquarters. It was a deliberate choice. I wanted Harrison to see us every time he looked out his window. I transformed myself completely. The rumpled t-shirts and 3-day stubble disappeared, replaced by tailored suits from Italian tailors in the city and a polished appearance that commanded attention. My new address in Point Piper and my newfound confidence were not just for show. They were weapons I was sharpening for the inevitable confrontation. I was no longer just a programmer from the western suburbs. I was a player in the game, and I was ready to roll the dice. 9 months after our launch, Harper Data Solutions had grown from a team of 5 misfits in a room smelling of kebabs to a workforce of 50, occupying 2 floors of a glass tower in North Sydney. Our client list included the Commonwealth Bank and huge mining conglomerates in Western Australia. We were valued at approaching 200 million Australian dollars. We were directly competing with Sterling Corporation for contracts, and we were winning more often than not. Then came the moment I had been both dreading and anticipating. An invitation to speak at South by Southwest Sydney, the largest festival of technology and innovation in the Southern Hemisphere. Harrison Sterling was also scheduled to present. We would be on the same stage on the same day. The night before the summit, I could not sleep. I stood at the window of my new apartment in Point Piper, looking out at the Sydney Opera House glowing white across the dark water. I mentally rehearsed what I would say if we came face to face. Would he even know who I was? Had Sophie told him about her ex-husband's new company? The next morning, the convention centre in Darling Harbour was packed. I launched into my presentation, explaining how Harper Data was revolutionising predictive logistics. The audience was engaged, asking thoughtful questions. I was no longer the desperate man in the singlet. I was the chief executive officer of the hottest startup in the country. As I was wrapping up, I saw him, Harrison Sterling, standing at the back of the room, watching me with a frown. Next to him was Sophie. She looked stunning in a designer dress that probably cost more than my first car, but her eyes looked tired. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw shock register on her face. She had not expected this version of me, confident, successful, commanding the room. I finished my presentation to enthusiastic applause. As I stepped down from the stage, the moderator announced, "And now, please welcome Harrison Sterling of Sterling Corporation." We passed each other at the steps. Up close, Harrison looked older than his photos in the Financial Review. He had the deep tan of someone who spent weekends on a yacht, but the lines around his mouth were tight. "Impressive presentation," he said, extending a hand. "Harrison Sterling." I took his hand, gripping perhaps a bit harder than necessary. "Liam Harper, Harper Data Solutions." A flicker of recognition crossed his face, quickly replaced by a calculating look. "Harper. Any relation to Sophie Harper?" "Ex-husband," I said evenly. "Small world, isn't it?" Before he could respond, the moderator called his name again. I walked to the back of the room where Sophie stood frozen, clutching a glass of water. "Hello, Sophie," I said quietly. "You look well, Liam," she managed. I had no idea you would be here." "Clearly," I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Are you enjoying the summit?" She glanced nervously toward the stage where Harrison was beginning his talk. "You have changed," she said. "Success will do that," I replied. "Or maybe it was the necessity of survival." "I meant to reach out after I heard about your company," she stammered, "to congratulate you." "Did you?" I kept my tone light. "Well, better late than never." On stage, Harrison was struggling. His presentation lacked energy. He was using buzzwords to cover up the fact that his new platform was lagging behind ours. The audience could sense it. The questions from the floor were challenging, bordering on hostile. "Your husband seems to be having a rough time up there," I observed. "I hear Sterling Corporation has had a few setbacks lately. Technical challenges with the algorithm?" Sophie's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing, Liam? Building a successful company? Or is this just about revenge?" "I am building the best company I can," I said smoothly. "If that happens to impact Harrison's business, well, competition is healthy, isn't it? That is what you told me. Reality, I believe you called it." Harrison finished his presentation to polite but subdued applause. As he made his way back to us, I saw the tension in his shoulders. "Darling," he said to Sophie, barely acknowledging me, "we should get going. We have that dinner with the investors." "Of course." Sophie took his arm, but her eyes stayed on me. "It was unexpected to see you, Liam." "I am sure we will be seeing more of each other," I said pleasantly. "Sydney is a small town in some ways." Harrison gave me a curt nod. "Harper, good luck with your startup." "Oh, we are well past the startup phase, mate," I corrected him, slipping into the colloquialism deliberately. "But thank you. Good luck with your technical challenges." His jaw tightened, but he said nothing, steering Sophie away through the crowd. As I watched them go, I did not feel the triumph I expected. I just felt a strange pity for Sophie. She had chased a golden horizon, only to find it was just painted plastic. 2 weeks later, I attended a charity gala at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. As I circulated through the crowd, champagne in hand, I spotted Sophie alone by a large Indigenous painting, looking troubled. "Penny for your thoughts," I said, approaching her. She started. "Liam, you seem to be everywhere these days." "It is that kind of town." I looked around. "No Harrison tonight?" "He is usually the center of attention." "He is dealing with a situation at the office," she said, taking a sip of champagne. "Something you might know about? The contract with Macquarie Group, perhaps?" I smiled. We had just poached Macquarie Group, one of Sterling's oldest clients. "They made a business decision, Sophie. Nothing personal." "It feels personal," she lowered her voice. "What do you want, Liam? Is this what this is about? Destroying us?" "This is about proving that I was not the failure you thought I was," I said, "and maybe showing you that you bet on the wrong horse." "That is cruel," she whispered. "Crueler than walking out on your husband the day before his big break? Crueler than sharing his proprietary work with a competitor?" I kept my voice gentle, at odds with my words. She flinched. "Harrison and I are getting married," she said abruptly. "Next month, at the Park Hyatt." I raised an eyebrow. "Congratulations. I am sure it will be beautiful." "I want you to stop this," she said, "whatever it is you are doing, as a wedding gift." I laughed softly. "Now, who is being cruel? No, Sophie, I am just getting started." She gripped my arm. "Harrison is dangerous when he is cornered. Liam, you do not know what he is capable of." "Neither does he know what I am capable of," I said, removing her hand gently. "Enjoy the rest of your evening. Give my best to the groom." As I walked away, my mobile phone buzzed with a text message from Tilly, my vice president of operations. "We need to talk. Sterling is making moves." The game was escalating. The next morning, I learned what Harrison's moves entailed. Sterling Corporation had filed a lawsuit against Harper Data Solutions, claiming intellectual property theft and corporate espionage. It was a lie, of course, a desperate, dirty tactic to spook my investors and slow my momentum. "They have nothing," Callum assured me after reviewing the filing. "This is a desperation play. Can we counter?" "With pleasure," I said, looking out at the harbor. "We will file a countersuit, alleging that Sterling's delayed analytics platform was actually based on my work, shared without authorization during your marriage to Sophie." "That would drag her into it," Callum noted. "Does that bother you?" I thought about the tired woman I had seen at the gallery, the woman who was about to marry a man who would use the legal system to crush an innocent rival. "No," I said. "She made her choice. Now we all have to live with the consequences." 3 days after the lawsuit was filed, I received an invitation in the mail. It was on thick cream paper with gold embossing, heavy enough to be a weapon. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison Sterling request the pleasure of your company at their wedding." Inside was a handwritten note from Sophie. "Liam, I would love for you to see what real success looks like. No hard feelings. S. The sheer audacity took my breath away. Was this a twisted olive branch, or a calculated move to show me that despite our legal battle, she and Harrison were untouchable? Either way, it presented an opportunity I could not ignore. I accepted the invitation. Then I called Jack O'Neill and Tilly. I want to know everything about Sterling Corporation's financial situation, I told them. Board members, shareholders, outstanding loans, everything. Are we looking at an acquisition? Jack asked, a glint in his eye. Something like that. What we discovered was fascinating. Despite the outward appearance of success, Sterling Corporation was over-leveraged. Harrison had been taking massive risks, buying properties in the United States and expanding too quickly to cover the losses from his failing analytics platform. The company's stock was vulnerable. The lawsuit against us was likely a smokescreen to distract from their weakening position. He is swimming naked, Jack observed with a chuckle, and the tide is going out. With the right strategy, a takeover was possible. I began quietly buying shares through various investment vehicles, not enough to trigger any alarms, but steadily increasing our position. The week before the wedding, we made our move. Harper Data Solutions announced a tender offer for Sterling Corporation shares at a premium that was hard for shareholders to resist. The business world was shocked. A 3-year-old company from the western suburbs trying to swallow a giant that had been around for decades. But what they did not know was that we already controlled nearly 30% of the shares, and we had commitments from the institutional investors, including the ones Harrison had alienated at the recent summit, to push us over the 50% mark. The takeover was hostile, swift, and brutal. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the Sydney harbour sparkling like crushed diamonds. I dressed carefully in a custom suit, selected a watch I had bought to celebrate our first major contract, and had a car take me to the Park Hyatt Sydney. My +1 was Tilly, my vice president of operations. Not a romantic date, but a shrewd businesswoman who understood exactly what today was about. Remember, I told her as we pulled up to the hotel, directly under the shadow of the harbour bridge, we are not here to make a scene. We are here to observe. Tilly adjusted her glasses. And to be observed. The ballroom of the Park Hyatt was transformed into a floral wonderland, with white orchids and native Australian wildflowers everywhere. A string quartet played softly as guests in designer finery mingled, looking out at the opera house across the water. I recognized faces from magazine covers and the business news. Harrison had invited the cream of Sydney society. When Sophie walked down the aisle, in a gown that probably cost more than our old apartment in Parramatta, I felt nothing. Not anger, not loss. Just a curious detachment, as if I were watching a film about someone else's life. Harrison beamed at his bride, looking every inch the successful tycoon. He did not notice me sitting quietly in the middle row, nor did he seem aware that several of his board members kept glancing nervously at their mobile phones. The ceremony was brief and tasteful. They exchanged vows, rings were presented, and they sealed their union with a kiss as guests applauded. It was during the reception that things began to unravel. Harrison and Sophie were making the rounds, accepting congratulations, when Harrison's phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked it, frowned, and excused himself. Minutes later, he returned, looking pale beneath his tan. I sipped my champagne and watched as he whispered urgently to one of his executives. More phones began to buzz. The room filled with the soft, electronic hum of notifications. The business crowd at the wedding was starting to realize something was happening. And then Harrison saw me. Our eyes met across the room, and I raised my glass in a silent toast. The confusion on his face quickly morphed into shock as recognition dawned, followed by something darker. He started toward me, but was intercepted by another board member who showed him something on a tablet computer. Harrison's face drained of all color. The news was breaking on the Financial Review website. Harper Data Solutions acquires controlling interest in Sterling Corporation. Effective immediately, the board would be restructured with myself as the new chairman. In other words, I now owned Harrison's company. Sophie, still floating on her bridal bliss, seemed oblivious to the business drama unfolding around her. She continued chatting with guests, showing off her ring. Harrison shook off the board member and stalked toward me. The murmurs in the room stopped. The string quartet trailed off into an awkward silence. "Harper," he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You think this is over? You think you have won?" "I think you have had enough champagne, Harrison," I said calmly, standing my ground. "You orchestrated this," he snarled, his face flushed with rage. "Today of all days, you stole my company." "I bought your company," I corrected him, "at a fair market price. The shareholders chose me, Harrison, just like Sophie chose you." "You son of a—" Harrison lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my lapels. "You have taken everything from me." Security guards were moving toward us, but before they could intervene, Harrison swung wildly. His fist connected with my jaw. The impact was surprising, but he was too drunk and too emotional to put much force behind it. I stumbled back but did not fall. The room gasped. Sophie screamed, rushing to his side. "Harrison, stop it!" I straightened my tie, tasting a little blood. I looked at the man who had once seemed like a giant to me. Now he was just a pathetic figure, brawling at his own wedding. "Feel better?" I asked quietly. Harrison stood there breathing hard, the fight gone out of him as the reality of his situation set in. 2 security guards took his arms. "Don't worry," I told the guards. "I will not press charges. It is his wedding day after all." I looked at Sophie. Her face was a mask of mortification and horror. She looked from her ruined husband to me, the man she had called a failure. "Take care of your husband, Sophie," I said. "He is going to need you more than ever now." As Tilly and I walked out of the ballroom, leaving the chaos behind us, the whispers followed us like a wake behind a boat. "Was it worth it?" Tilly asked as our car pulled away from the Park Hyatt. I touched my jaw, which was beginning to throb. I looked out at the Sydney Harbour Bridge, standing strong and enduring against the night sky. "Ask me tomorrow," I said. "But right now, I reckon it was." The fallout was swift and merciless. By Monday morning, the footage of Harrison Sterling brawling at his own wedding had gone viral. The Financial Review ran the headline, "Wedding Bell Blues, Sterling Implodes as Harper Takes the Reins." Harrison was humiliated. His reputation in the tight-knit Sydney business community was in tatters. The board members who had once toasted his success voted unanimously to remove him as the chief executive officer of the newly merged entity. He retreated to his holiday home in Palm Beach, refusing visitors and drowning his sorrows. He expected me to crush him completely, to strip him of every last asset. But I had a different plan. 2 weeks after the wedding, I requested a private meeting with Harrison. He walked into the conference room looking 10 years older. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a jittery exhaustion. "Here to twist the knife, Harper?" he asked, his voice rough. "No, Harrison," I said, sliding a document across the mahogany table. "I am here to offer you a parachute." He looked at the document, confused. "A buyout?" "A generous one," I nodded. "Enough to pay off your personal debts and keep your properties. Enough to live very comfortably for the rest of your life." Harrison looked at me with suspicion. "What is the catch?" "You step down from the board permanently. You sign a non-compete agreement that keeps you out of the technology sector forever. You go enjoy your yacht, Harrison. You are done here." "Why?" he asked, genuinely baffled. "I tried to ruin you. I tried to steal your life." "Because I am not you," I said simply, "and because I want to build a company based on innovation, not vindictiveness. Keeping you around as an enemy is a distraction I do not need." Harrison signed the papers with a shaking hand. He left the room without a word, a defeated man who had been given mercy he did not deserve. The final loose end was Sophie. She came to my office a month later. She had filed for divorce from Harrison. The marriage had effectively ended the moment the fist hit my jaw. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the harbor. She looked simpler, dressed in jeans and a blouse, stripped of the pretense she had worn like armor. "I am sorry, Liam," she said, turning to face me, "for everything, for calling you a failure, for betraying your trust." "I know," I said. I felt no anger, only a quiet calm. "I wasn't happy," she continued, her voice trembling. "I felt stuck. I thought Harrison was the answer because he was established. He knew what he wanted. You were just dreaming." "And now," I asked, "does this look like a dream to you?" I gestured to the bustling office behind the glass partition where hundreds of employees were working. "No," she whispered. "It looks like an empire." She took a step closer, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "We have history, Liam. We were good once. Maybe now that things are different, we could try again." I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. It would have been easy to say yes, to take her back and complete the victory. But I looked at her and realized that the Liam she loved was gone, and the Sophie I loved had never really existed. "History is not enough, Sophie," I said gently. "You know what I realized after you left? I realized that I deserve someone who believes in me when I have nothing, someone who sees my potential even when I cannot see it myself. You only believed in me when the world started applauding." The hope died in her eyes. She nodded slowly, tears running down her face. "What do I do now?" she asked. "I have lost everything." "You start over," I said, "just like I did. It is hard yakka, Sophie, but it is the only way to build something real." I walked her to the elevator. As the doors closed, severing our connection forever, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't realized I was carrying. I walked back into the main office. Tilly was waiting for me, holding a tablet computer with our latest quarterly projections. Jack O'Neill was sitting on a desk, laughing with a group of junior developers. "Everything all right, boss?" Tilly asked, studying my face. "Yeah," I smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached my eyes. "Everything is perfect." At the next board meeting, someone asked if we should remove the Sterling name from our subsidiaries to erase the bad memory. "No," I replied. "Keep it. It is important to remember where we came from and the price of taking shortcuts." Harper Sterling Enterprises flourished beyond expectation. The predictive analytics platform that started in a sweaty apartment in Parramatta was now revolutionizing how businesses around the world operated. I stood on the balcony of my office, the wind off the Tasman Sea cooling my face. I had started this journey seeking revenge, fueled by rage and whiskey. But standing here now, surrounded by my team, I realized that revenge was a hollow prize. The real victory wasn't destroying Harrison or humiliating Sophie. The real victory was that I had built a life I was proud of, with people who had my back. I took a deep breath of the salty air, looked at the horizon, and turned back to work. There was still code to write.